Bitcoin is right now attempting a breakout out from this falling wedge pattern, which we know is of course a bullish pattern, and I've mentioned this. I think we have a chance right here to be breaking up to the upside and confirming that bullish breakout. We know there's about 80% likelihood of a bearish falling wedge pattern to be breaking out to the upside. We have been supported here from this previous level of support, $58,000. And it looks like we are breaking out from this falling wedge pattern. I would want us to be breaking out above this previous range high here, and also of course above the falling wedge pattern, of course closing a confirmed at least 4-hourly candle close above this 4-hourly candle here, closing in about 20 minutes. So by the time you watch this, we might be well out of this falling wedge pattern, which will, in my opinion, then bring us up back towards these levels, potentially even the high here at $67,000. Let's see how this goes. Now, I also want to make very clear that usually, guys, June was negative 20% for Bitcoin, right? Negative 20%, but July is usually very bullish for Bitcoin, especially on the Bitcoin bear market year. So 2022, let's have a look at 2022. We went up 16.8%, and then the 4 years before that, 2018, in the same moment we are now, we went up to almost 21% in July. And I think this can be playing out very nicely here. July just started, and I think we can have this nice push to the upside back to these previous high levels. And then eventually, I think, of course, we will break to the downside. I mean, keep in mind that Bitcoin, the bear market usually lasts for 12 months, as I always mention. And that's very important to know, right? Because history often rhymes. It doesn't necessarily repeat, but it has some similarities, because the last bear market, we went down for 365 days from the top to the bottom of the bull market to the bottom of the bear market. The cycle before that, exactly 365 days as well. The cycle before that, 396 days. So there are similarities. And right now, if we follow the same pattern, we'll find a bottom somewhere in October, maybe October 1st, somewhere in beginning of October, in my opinion, we can find that bottom for the bear market. Now, I also looking at Bitcoin here again on the 4-hourly. If we break out towards the upside, well, what are the levels that we could potentially be reaching? We have to look at the liquidation heat map. And this is telling us where traders are getting liquidated on their positions. So a lot of people have been shorting Bitcoin here at the bottom, and a lot of people have been longing Bitcoin. And we have been grabbing this liquidity at the bottom here, not all of it, but a lot of it we have grabbed. This is of course for people who have been longing Bitcoin, and they got liquidated now as we fell to the downside. And right now I think it's time for the shorts to get liquidated. As usually we get liquidated on both sides before making a bigger move in one direction. And we can see right now a lot of liquidity lying here at $61,000 and also all the way to like $62,000. But I think we could potentially push higher before we move further down, and this will bring us of course all the way to these levels, potentially having a rejection here at this level at $62,000, which was previously support and then also resistance right here. But overall, just to be clear, I think we can push up, but overall I think we are gonna eventually move down and create lower lows for Bitcoin. Let me show you guys this here on the weekly chart. We are also close to the bottom of the bear market, not there yet, and that's why I'm thinking we can continue. We will mostly continue the bear market to go further down, but right now, like I said, we can have a slight pump to the upside before we continue the breakdown. Look at this. In the last bear market, we had also this falling wedge pattern, which, like I said, is a bullish pattern, which we are forming right now on the 4-hourly, on the shorter time frame. And that's why I'm bullish on Bitcoin on the shorter time frame. But overall, we are forming this big descending wedge pattern, which I think eventually will break out in approximately October, like I said, and I think we can reach somewhere in the low 50s to potentially even the 40s region for Bitcoin before bouncing up. Now, the best way to benefit from this is that once we have that next big breakdown, potentially coming, of course, in August, because look at August. August is very bearish usually for Bitcoin. Then I think it's a good time to start potentially longing the market. Also looking here at Bitcoin on the same two market cycles, we have the last cycle and this cycle, the Fibonacci lines. We can see that right now we're approaching that golden pocket, which last time, of course, we filled. We even went to the 0.786 level, which would bring us to around $40,000. Not saying we will necessarily go there, but I definitely think we have another move to the downside as we did last cycle. And that's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm talking about. And also look at this. We just crossed below the 200 weekly moving average line for Bitcoin, which is a very important historical line, because historically we find a bottom just below, around about this 200 weekly moving average line. And right now we just closed below that line. So this just tells us that the bottom is close for Bitcoin, and soon it will be lights out and Bitcoin will create new all-time highs, as it did every single cycle top. We always create new all-time highs for Bitcoin, and I'm sure it will happen once again. And finally, let's have a look at this. This is telling us the amount of supply of Bitcoin that is currently in a loss. And we can see that right now approximately 45% of the supply of Bitcoin is in a loss. And usually when more than half the supply of Bitcoin is in a loss, we find a bottom for Bitcoin. Now, what we also have here is the blue line. This is the realized price for Bitcoin. So basically the average price of which Bitcoin was bought for on the Bitcoin network. And usually we find a bottom whenever we dip below that price, and we're approaching it right now. We're almost below that average purchase price for Bitcoin in terms of what the price is right now and the average purchase price. So also another indicator that we are close to the bottom for Bitcoin. There's only a few more months left, and I think in Q4 it will be the bottom for Bitcoin, and therefore we should be ready to deploy money into potential spot positions or some low leverage futures positions. But in my opinion, if you just buy Bitcoin spot, and this is my honest advice, you will do very well in this upcoming bull market. There's no need to buy anything on leverage, as most people will lose money eventually anyways with leverage. But I will personally do a short, a low leverage position and try and benefit from this market on top of buying spot, of course. And with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let's see what happens here tomorrow. And I'm really hoping that we have that nice push to the upside so I can short Bitcoin until October. See you guys tomorrow, and bye.